So we're talking distance learning, and as always, I'm trying to follow things from the thinking classroom. Now, this is a video, this is a picture taken from what used to be, some kids standing watching baseball, and we're trying to get some equity going, and so maybe they need different size stools. And the reason I went with this picture instead is because the next picture I'm going to show is really what speaks to me. So I like this. We jump on board with this because the students can now see the teacher making whatever they're making. They can all sit at the same level and see her, and that's great, but that's still not what I wanted my classroom to be. So when I saw this slide, that's when I realized what the thinking classroom was for my class, because this is exactly what I see in my room every day, and this is what I still want to accomplish during distance learning. So this was my goal when I was figuring out what am I doing for distance learning. How am I getting the kids active? And I'm not the sage on the stage, as they say. I'm going around and helping each kid where they're at, doing what they're doing. They're the active ones. So that's my goal, and that was my goal during distance learning. So if you haven't seen the Building Thinking Classroom or the video that I've made, or seen Peter Liljedahl talk about this, if you don't know what this represents, please go back and watch the video I've made, or in the within the Google Slides, I have other ones with podcasts of different people talking about the thinking classroom. But I highly recommend you learn about this when you are looking at this video before you continue on. So what am I doing with distance learning? First, I'm beginning with a problem, and this problem, a lot of times we can have low floor, high ceiling problem, or we can have other types of things that I'll show you after a bit, but this is always a really big thing. So I have to have the top three things. So I have to have my problem when I'm planning, what am I going to do? The next thing is visibly random groups. I'm still trying to do this. How can I do this? Well, first off, I want to have 2 or 3 people. So I still am focused on how can I group people together no matter what type of learning I'm doing. The random part and visibly being random, I'm still going to go for the random. Can I make it visibly random? It depends on if they believe me, because when I use Zoom and do the breakout rooms, it's not always visibly, but we talk about how that does it. So I think I'm able to do visibly random grouping. I also really want to get the vertical non-permanent surfaces. So we'll talk about this more, but this is something I'm really going to focus on and be able to do. I want to be able to give oral instructions, which I've been able to do in my distance learning, because when I'm in Zoom, I just tell them what I want them to do, and then they go to the breakout rooms. Answering questions, I'm still able to do this, which is exciting, because I think this is a really big part of their process, and they need to have that helpful part there, but also being done correctly. I still have them do the meaningful notes, but I also am focused on the building autonomy. So I want them to be able to help themselves, to be able to take control of their learning themselves. And so how am I able to do that? And so that's one of my focuses as I planned on my distance learning. Leveling to the bottom, how am I debriefing at the end? So what is our talking, where are we going with this, and making sure that I do this. So that is another thing I made sure I could do. Okay, so the first 3 things are the things I'm going to really focus on here. I can always get a problem. That's not anything to do with where we are and how we're learning. My visibly random groups, I do breakout rooms in Zoom. And my non-permanent surfaces, I do Google Jamboards. I've tried many other things. I'll talk about that again later, but that's how I'm able to do my vertical non-permanent surfaces. So my norms for students as we do this, I want you to join the slide that matches the number of your breakout room. So when you get put in a breakout room, it tells you you're in room 1, 2, 3, or whatever. Well, in the Jamboard, it also has slide 1, 2, 3. So I tell them always just join the slide that is matching to your breakout room. Just like I do in the classroom, I want 1 marker per group. So if more than 1 person is going to write, which again, we don't want necessarily, but if more than 1 person is going to write, make sure you use different colors just so I can see the interaction of who is all writing and what they're doing. But we still want to follow if you want something written, then what you're going to do is you're going to hand the marker over, and then you're going to tell that person to write something, just to make sure everybody's involved. And then it also encourages that student discourse and gets that started off the ground. Also, It's a big part of my job at the beginning of the year to make sure everybody knows that everybody has something to offer. And then as I'm talking to students, I'm forcing that also and making sure that everybody's offering things so that they all see the value in each other's words. And then I always make sure that everybody in the group knows, and if they don't know, then I walk away from the group and they have to make sure that everyone in the group knows before I will move them on to the next thing. So norms for teachers, it goes along the same way. Know your intentions and your progressions. So what are your students going to learn? What do you want them to learn, and how are they going to get there? And just be really pre-worked out on the problems and which ways they can go, so you're ready with your questions and your progressions. My one rule for myself when I'm going around is I only ask questions if I can help it. And so my questions are, how can I really get down to what they understand, and how can I progress them? So my first questions are always assessing. I've learned the hard way that I assume what kids are thinking when they write something, and most of the time my assumption is actually wrong. So my first question is just getting down to their thinking based behind what they wrote on the board. For example, tell me more about this little spot that you wrote on the board here. And then they tell me, and a lot of times it's different than what I thought. So then I know where they're at, and then I follow up with advancing questions. Either giving them a goal, like, can you tell me why this rule works? Or what if I gave you this problem, how would it go? Or just exploring more of what they've already started exploring and getting them going on that. And then I walk away, and my kids learned pretty quickly. If I walk away, it means I have confidence in them. So they just are going to go to town and get to work. So at first they questioned it, but after a while they got used to that move from me, and I'll do that in the breakout rooms too. And then I also need to pay attention to what they're doing on their boards and having them keep it on their boards, because then at the end when we debrief as a class, I want to know which order am I going to go in and what am I going to focus on for each group. So I said I was going to talk more about this. The vertical non-permanent surfaces. In the classroom, it's whiteboards, chalkboards, windows, shower curtains, whatever you found to be able to write on. We can't do that at a distance though. And so the one I settled on was Google Jamboard. And the reason I picked Google Jamboard over the rest is because everybody could write on it simultaneously. It had different slides, so I could assign slides per breakout group. But then also within that, they have the ability to go then at other slides and peek at what they're doing. So if you look at the mobility of knowledge here, this ability for kids to peek at each other's and get ideas from each other, they do that a lot actually. I was kind of surprised by how much they did that, but that was a good thing. It's not cheating. It's a good thing for them to look at each other's. And so I liked that in that they could jump around. It also gave me the ability to watch them better. So I could at one view, and I'll show you that, at one view, I can see everybody at one time. The downside is that the screen that they write on is way too small. Hopefully one day they'll expand that, but for now, in comparison to my other pluses, that's going to be little to me. So I like that they can write. So in Google Slides, they can't write. And so typing math is just ridiculous, and it takes away the ease of the non-permanent surface that we wanted there. I tried the AWW app, but had a lot of problems with kids being able to simultaneously work and not get messed up from each other. Explain Everything is also another great one, except there's a voice part to it. So if you're in Zoom and they already have the voice, then you have Explain Everything has not a video, but a voice to it. So then you have to mute somewhere and it gets really cumbersome and messy. So otherwise I do like Explain Everything. It also got difficult to just assign everybody to it. So in the different slides and things like that. So I just really found Jamboard to be the best one. So here's an example of what Jamboard looks like. If you look at that, you have these very simple tools at the left. So you just have your mouse pointer here. You have an eraser. You have a pen that you can change colors. You have a Post-it note. You can insert an image, and then you also have this laser pointer. The other thing that's really nice is up here, there's multiple slides. So here I have 6 groups. And if you click right here on this down arrow, you can actually see all of them at the same time. So you see that here. So I can look at those and see where everybody is. So while kids are working, I'm actually watching this top bar to see if people are working or if they're just sitting there stagnant and I might need to jump into their breakout room. The other nice thing is, you know how Google has that little circle at the top that has the picture of whoever's working on it? Well, this does that too. I don't have any students on here right now, so you can't see it, but this does that too. So I can see who's in each room. You can also see kids jumping from slide to slide. So you can actually watch them looking at each other's. So let's say that there was 3 people on 1, 0 people on 2, and 5 people on 3. What that tells me is group 2 is actually really struggling, and I might need to jump in there to see if they need some help because they're looking around so much. So this was a task I did for sequences, arithmetic and geometric. So here's some other examples. So I use the Post-its as kind of a manipulative for them to be able to drag this in for the open middle problem. I highly recommend open middle for any kind of learning, including distance. So if you don't know about open middle, check that out, openmiddle.com. But I use the Post-its for them to be able to drag it into the spots. And then I love that they can also, because you can do that in Google Slides too, there's a lot of really great stuff there. But I love that they can actually write on it and show their thinking behind it. Here's another group that they hadn't written on, but you can see how they're finding their sequences. So as far as visibly random grouping, that's where Zoom comes in really nice for me right now. And when our school is talking about maybe using Google Meet, kind of threw a fit because I'm like, I really need my breakout rooms. But good news is Google Meet is coming up with breakout rooms, probably not till October, but they are coming up with breakout rooms. So if you are a group, a school that doesn't allow Zoom and you use Google Meet, know that that is going to happen. But here's why I like breakout rooms. So in breakout rooms, when you set it up, you can actually make it very random and select how many people are going to be in there. Remember, 3 is ideal. If you can't do 3, go down to 2 before you go up to 4. But if you have tons and tons of kids, I get it. I'm lucky enough to be in a small school where I have small class sizes. But if you have tons of kids and you need to do 4 just for management purposes, it's not the end of the world. Just know that the research shows that 3 is the ideal number. Okay, it's not about assigning kids, so you really want it to be random. And so here's what it looks like on Zoom. So if I was to show you my Zoom screen, it wouldn't actually show you this. So I had to take some screenshots. So at this time I had 4 people in my Zoom. And when I click on making breakout rooms, and it looks, I can change how many rooms there are. When it says automatically, that's going to be your random. If you actually want to assign them purposely, you do manual. And then you would hit create rooms if I wanted to have 4 per room. But I didn't. I wanted to have 2 or 3. So when I upped the number of rooms to 2, it automatically did the math for me. It told me I had 2 in each room. I was good to go. We could go with that. Then it'll show you this screen. So nobody's in breakout rooms. They're still in Zoom right now in the big room. And so it shows me the rooms, and I could see who's paired together. Now, again, you want it to be random, but you also want to be thoughtful about this a little bit. So maybe this was a really bad arrangement, and without the kids actually knowing, you can move them around so that now they're in a different arrangement. And you do that by, when you hover over the name, it'll say move to or exchange, and it's real easy. You just click on it, you can move it to room 2, or you can exchange it with someone in room 2. It's real easy to do. I found this especially useful when I had a para in the Zoom and I wanted to make sure they were placed with whoever they needed to be placed, or I really want to make sure I had a group of kids that they could work with at their pace. So then I would rearrange just a little bit with that para. All right, so once you have that picked and you want that, then you can hit join or send them to breakout rooms. And then they'll get a little button that says join breakout rooms. Now, I actually found that to be a problem. Kids had a hard time finding joins. So you can set it so that it just automatically puts them in breakout rooms. Now, some people don't like doing that because it feels kind of rude just making them go. They like giving them the choice, and that's up to you. I'm going to change it so it's automatic, so they just go there and they don't have to find the button, because I don't know how many times I sat there waiting for them to find the button and they were struggling and I couldn't really help them all that much, not knowing where it was on their screen. Now, once they're in breakout rooms over on the right here, you can see that they have, well, on both sides, you can see that they have green dots saying that they're present there. And then I joined a breakout room. So like if I want to join one, I just click on the little blue join on the breakout room and it puts me there. And then you can see I'm in room 2 over here. If I want to leave that breakout room, I can just hit leave. Or at the bottom, I can hit leave breakout room. When we're done with the breakout room, if I stop moving my mouse, it'll show up again. But at the very left there on the left side of the screen, you can see close all breakout rooms. So I can click on that, and then basically it gives them however many seconds. I think it's automatically set up for 60 seconds, but you can change it. I changed it to 30 seconds. And it'll give them a little countdown so they can finish up whatever they're talking about before they get kicked out. Or they can go ahead and just click on leave breakout room at the bottom blue there. If you don't have breakout room as an option on your toolbar in Zoom, like I didn't at the beginning, I thought I had to buy a pro version of Zoom. It actually turns out you don't have to buy it. It's in there automatically. You just have to go into your settings to set it up. So if you go to settings in your, you know, like when you go to account and you scroll down, and normally I just click on meetings, but if you go to settings and you scroll all the way down to in meeting advanced, you'll see where it says breakout room, and you just have to toggle that over so that it's blue and turned on, and that will allow you then to use your breakout rooms. If you don't have Zoom, you have to use Google Meet. A friend of mine, a coworker, has put together a little way to do that quickly, somewhat quickly in Google Meet. So work around until that comes out from Google Meet. So go ahead and use that if you don't have another one. So I was lucky enough to be able to teach synchronously. So that's what I'm going to talk about now. I'll make another video for asynchronous. But here's how I organized myself. So I organized myself in Google Slides. So my first page was just, what is my lesson plan? Kind of like what you would do on paper for class, right? So on this assignment or this lesson, I wanted them to do Notice Wonder. And so my Notice Wonder, I put the visual on the second slide because then I could share my screen and the visual would be right there for me to put that on there. And then what they would do is they would either unmute themselves and tell me what they noticed and wondered, or they could type it in the chat window. And actually a lot of kids liked the chat window rather than the unmuting themselves. So that is where I started. Then if I had Jamboards to go to, I would put the Jamboard links in my notes at the bottom so that I could copy and paste them into the chat window real easily, and I didn't have to go searching and into Jamboards to find them. So I would copy and paste and put that in the chat window. For this one, I started with manipulatives. I'm not sharing that slide because it failed miserably. I'll have to rethink that one next time. And then what I did is we went on to doing a practice. And in the practice, we did a Jamboard. And so I shared with the Jamboard, and know this, we've done some noticing and wondering, and we've done some playing with manipulatives. So this isn't too fresh, but in accordance with the Thinking Classroom, it was that I haven't told them much. So this is the ending of their slides, not the beginning. And basically what happened was I put them into this practice, and they weren't doing too hot. It was kind of a mess, which is honestly exactly what I was expecting and wanting. I wanted them to have that struggle first. I wanted them to have that, you know, that headache before what I was going to tell them was going to be the aspirin. If you haven't heard Dan Meyer speak about that, check that out. So I wanted them to have the headache. This group, they were kind of going along with what we had done with the manipulatives, trying to figure it out. And then what I would do is I would actually bring them back to the main group. So they were in their breakout rooms. I saw they were really struggling. I brought them back to the main group, and maybe I went through, I made a slide for myself, and I did, this is my handwriting, I did the top square root of 20, and I simplified that. We talked about it, we worked through it. Actually, a lot of my stuff is that they tell me their ideas, and then I help them out, or I, you know, question them through it. And then I put them back in their breakout rooms, and they work on it some more. I think I ended up having to bring them to the main room about 3 times before they were at the point of being able to do the whole thing. After that, after they're able to do the whole thing themselves, I bring them back and we do our debriefing, and we go through them all together. And then I gave them an open middle. So in my open middle, which I just got from openmiddle.com, they were able to then be challenged a little bit to see how well they actually went through that. And then back to my lesson plan, I had some other things that I had to do, give them their assessment for the day. So that's kind of how I shaped my lessons for the day. So it always helps to see an example in person of what this might look like. Here's my lesson. So this was a lesson I came upon, oh, I wish I could credit the person, but they have this great lesson of how to use visual pattern to help figure out negative exponents. So this is what I would have given myself for a lesson plan, right? So I have my visual pattern. We went through and we do a notice wonder of this one, And then I pass out different ones. So this is by 3. So then maybe I would give a base of 2, a base of 4, a base of 5 around the room. And then I would ask them these questions. So when I show you the video, you can't see the Jamboards because I failed to share my screen. So when I show you the video, here is group 1. And basically I had these wonderful volunteers during the summer to help me put together a video to be able to share. So you're gonna see a kid and a teacher in each room. And in my first breakout room, they had a base of 2. And so they went through the progression of questions that I asked. And basically I asked them to tell me what's the next 2 look like. And then after that, I asked them if this was figure 1, what does figure 0 look like? What does figure -1 look like? So they're working that out. And then I asked them to organize it on a table. Here's the second group. They had a base of 3, same thing. You know, what does the next 2 look like? What does the 0th one look like? The -1 look like? And organize it on a table. Now, I'm actually not going to take the time to show you this video right now, but know that if you go into the Google slide that I also shared in my blog post, you can watch this. It's really delightful and awesome to listen to these kids learn. And the reason I want you to watch that is if you're not a thinking classroom teacher yet, this is exactly what happens every single day. You hear the kids think, you hear them share their thinking out loud, you hear them processing, and then you hear the oh and making connections. And you hear a lot of times too, don't say anything the kids can say. This is a great opportunity to get the kids to say it and not me. So this is an excellent video to watch. I highly recommend you go in and watch this video. And if nothing else, start at the beginning, just kind of see the layout and how that goes, and then skip to the last 5 minutes because it's really quite awesome just to listen to those kids learn and hear it. So that is basically my distance learning. I will get into physical distancing and teaching hybrid on my next video, but good luck. I really, distance learning, I got what I wanted out of it. I wish I had my kids in my room though. I learned that if this is what teaching was for me, I wouldn't continue to be a teacher. But we're in the place we are and we need to do what we can. And this is definitely how I will continue teaching my distance learning because my kids were involved. And when I talked to parents, they said that my class was one that the kids looked forward to because they got to be involved. They weren't just sitting back watching recorded videos, and they weren't just listening to the teacher talk and present. So good luck and thanks for joining me.